Wednesday's plenary in the House of Representatives begins with a motion of urgent national importance on security in the Federal Capital Territory. Lawmakers are worried about the increased spate of kidnappings in the nation's capital.
They thought that since the compulsory registration of and linking of national identification numbers NIN by the federal government, there has never been a time it was deployed to tackle or address the pressing and scary state of insecurity in the Federal Capital Territory or the nation at large.
Next, the House considers a bill to amend the Electoral Act. Sponsor of the bill, Honorable Francis Waive, believes that certain concerns observed from the 2023 general elections must be quickly addressed.
I crave your indulgence to consider another amendment that I propose. In the 2022 Act, the matter of electronic transmission results was not definite. I think that we are the lawmakers. We are the ones that make the law for the country. I think we should not make a law that will be vague, that will be interpreted differently by different courts of law.
In the meantime, the delay in the issuance of national identity cards has caught the attention of lawmakers, prompting an investigation.
What is that the Commission headquarters and its state counterpart have been found to be ineffective in delivering the national assignment to the people, particularly in releasing the national identity card due to the government neglect of operational activities and directive for the benefit of all Nigerians.
Similarly, an investigation is to be carried out by the House Committee on National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, following the ban by the agency on the production of alcoholic beverages in sachets and small bottles in the country. The Green Chamber is worried that the ban could lead to job losses in the country. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Well, exactly. It is about a year now since we last held the elections in 2023. About this time, Nigeria was agog, hosting election observers and also hosting the entire country, making sure that we're all able to cast our vote. Well, that is over now. INEC has finally issued a report. It will be very interesting if you're able to get your hands on it. But we also have people right here in our studios to help discuss some of the outcomes of that and what it is we should be looking at if we're going to be looking at an amendment of our Electoral Act. And if the problem was with our Electoral Act. Well, joining us this morning, we have Mr. Kasim Afegbua, who is a former member, Media Strategy Committee of the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress. And he's right here with us in our Abuja studios. Good morning, the Prince. Welcome to Sunrise City this morning.
Good morning, Magua.
Good morning. Oh, well, so this is what we have now. A year after, INEC has finally released a report. A lot of people have been saying that INEC should be audited. For a number of people, they had high hopes when INEC was, or when we were going to the polls in 2023, but it does appear that INEC did not live up to expectation. And some people were wondering, wondering whether it has released its report in the dark. This release of the report, is this something our political parties are interested in? Are they aware of it?
Well, political parties must be aware of the fact that INEC is releasing the report, because a report about elections is a summary, of all the challenges, the pros and cons, logistical problems, issues of finances, what they encounter on the field. It's just like a critical reassessment, and that is the way of civilized society, so that in subsequent elections, it will guide them to avoid certain pitfalls, certain issues that emanated from that election, and maybe they will learn a better lesson in terms of preparing for other elections in the country. It's a four-year season kind of scenario, aside from the isolated elections or standalone elections that we have in some other states. And so it's a natural thing to do. Researchers will also be able to place their hand on a document that will sample some of the issues that dominated discourse during the elections. And that way you'll be able to form an opinion, because a lot of people form certain opinion just based on social media reports, even when they are not on ground to witness what transpired. And so a report of this nature will give you an insight into what actually transpired in certain locations by the actors and the operators of the system.
I'm sure a number of people will be looking forward to getting a hold of that particular report, and maybe one of the places that they'll be looking at is the beavers and how it was supposed to function, and how, you know, maybe they will have an excuse inside of it as to what precisely transpired.
The beavers worked actually. I think it's about the IRF. IRF is what people, you know, raise dust about. The beavers worked because even by virtue of the electoral, there are no room for incident forms, where if the beavers failed you have to seek incident form, which was also part of and parcel of our complaint for, you know, manipulation of election process. But Marco, let us face the fact: there is nothing you do so well in this country that anybody will want to say, oh, everything, and particularly politicians, they want to accept outcome of situations, outcome of political engagements and contestations. It's a thing that, you know, like I used to say, I'm not an itinerant politician. I just found myself in political circles and as a media consultant and all of that, and in the process, you know, participate. You know, just recently I tried to run for the governor of Edo State before I had to withdraw on account of zoning and what have you. But essentially, people must have, you know, the stamina to, you know, to engage the process, one, and also try as much as possible to, you know, accept outcome of election, irrespective of how painful they could be. Because it's all about emotions, it's all about sentiments. People, you know, talk about this every now and then and all that, but in a contest, only one person will emerge.
Yeah, while it is true that only one person will emerge, you know, some people would say what we have always clamored for is for free, fair, and credible elections. It's not the first time that we've had elections in Nigeria, and we've seen attempts over the years to try and improve upon our processes. 2015 was a hallmark when we had the what's this new accreditation thing that we had now? The card reader. No, the card reader in 2015. There was an innovation there with the introduction of technology, albeit just for accreditation. Some people are looking forward to the day when we will be able to have electronic voting, but so far so good. We know that our Electoral Act doesn't adopt that just yet. In 2023, it was that we're going to do away with incidence forms and all the other shenanigans that we saw that the card reader wasn't able to help out with. And so they were looking for an improvement on, you know, transparency, especially with regards to the introduction of the beavers. As you've rightly pointed out, the IREV, which was supposed to ensure that transparency, that it was what INEC was seeing, that also people who had voted at polling units also had, that did not quite happen, at least at the same time when a lot of people thought it was going to be happening. So from your own assessment, would you say that there needs to be a deliberate, or yes, it is a good thing that INEC has released a report, but don't you think that it needs to, you know, give a very clear explanation of what happened between what was expected and what it delivered?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. I think people must know that political parties must deliberately and consciously develop their capacity to monitor elections on election day. And they shouldn't be relying so much on what INEC has told them with respect to collating results, sending the results to a particular central collating unit and delivering it on one back-end facility or technology, so to speak. You see, when people talked about IRF, I asked myself, how come the APC was able to get out, you know, the summation of results even before every other person did? Because they had agents at the polling unit where you have to have your agent. The law specifies that once elections are collated and signed by the agents, a copy is pasted at that polling unit and also given to agents. So when you don't have agents on ground because of lack of capacity of getting the right agent, because it's expensive, you're going to give them money, you're going to sustain them for that day, from morning till evening, you have to be at the polling unit. You don't have to complain too much and be lashing onto IRF.
No, Mr. Afegbua, but we've always had agents. I mean, in all of the elections
but you've never had IREF.
In all, exactly. In all of the elections that we have had in Nigeria, political parties have always been encouraged to have agents at the polling units, and they've always been contestations. And it was maybe as a result of trying to improve that process that INEC promised an IREF to say even ordinary citizens, not just political parties, ordinary interested citizens will be able to log on real time. I think that's where the bone of contention now came in, because INEC started to say, well, we didn't quite promise real time. But citizens do remember, or they thought they heard INEC say that this was going to be real time. So if taxpayers' monies at the end of the day have gone into INEC to help it improve the processes and deliver on this IREF, and it doesn't deliver on that, doesn't it owe the people a very clear explanation as to what transpired?
That's why they have just come up with a report. And by the time you read, they will explain that there. That is one. Secondly, the issue of IREF is a technology. Anything can happen when it comes to technology. Anything can happen. And I remember that I raised alarm that people from the opposition party have trained people that want to hack into INEC facility and ensure that they post results. And see, you may not want to believe this, but I am telling you from a point of information, point of knowledge of what I knew. It's not everything you see on television. There were deliberate attempts to hack into that facility. They were going to be posting results, and it is very easy to do because I have seen people demonstrate it in my office. And so it is easier for outsiders to condemn INEC for not using IREF. But I'm telling you again that parties must use agents to counter IREF, to counter IREF, so that in the final you still have your result sheets in place when you go to tribunal.
We have heard INEC talk about this IREF and explain what happened. Oh, there was a technical glitch. That is the official word from INEC, was that there was a technical glitch. I'm hoping that this report explains, this glitch, and of course explains further, because I think another issue that INEC had with that election is the fact that it was sold wrongly. Many people misunderstood, according to INEC. They misunderstood what they meant by saying the IREF was going to be introduced. According to INEC, they thought that meant that the IREF was a prerequisite for the freeness and the fairness of an election. They said that's not the case. There was a glitch, and because there was a glitch, they weren't able to upload it on real time. It came up later, and that doesn't affect the result because, as you said, party agents were there, and if those documentation from them meets what INEC has, then the fact that the IREF didn't work doesn't mean that this election can be questioned. But what I really want to talk to you about are some of the reforms, because that's the conversation that's going on right now about electoral reforms. We're engaging the electoral process before elections themselves. So as the National Assembly is trying to look into these reforms, what areas do you think should be looked at, and why should they be looked at? What solutions to the problems that we faced in 2023 should they be addressing?
You see, one of the fundamental intervention that I would want to see is to light up Nigeria. We don't have electricity in a lot of places in the rural areas. Yet you conduct elections and you want IREF to take the result to your central collating unit just in real time, as you have said. Even where there are electricities, they don't even function. I don't know how many hours of electricity you get in a day. Nigeria is one funny country. Funny in the sense that you have not hit the optimum in terms of electricity production. You are introducing technology that can't function at the same time in almost 146,000 polling units across the country. So we need to begin to interrogate the infrastructure component of the country. That is very key. Because I remember when I was to vote in my polling unit, and the COM member who was one of the officers there were saying that, this is our battery. If we no quick now, you go quick die. And I said, why? Well, you should have charged this very well. I'm told that you have an alternative battery and all of that. But this is a problem that may have contributed to the technical glitch that INEC was talking about. Because you may have some results. You may not have the total result. And at the end of the day, people will always complain because the razzmatazz that attended that election was so profound that nobody was ready to believe INEC, whether they say the truth or not. Nobody was ready to believe them. We must continue, start a process of ensuring that we build in a little bit of confidence in processes. Because we're all shouting INEC, INEC, INEC. INEC are made up of Nigerians. You and I, they are there. And politicians are also Nigerians. And you know that there are politicians who always want to circumvent any system and all of that. So why you blame INEC? Look at yourself and your own conduct before, during, and after the election conduct. You see, we go to collation centers. Oftentimes it's in the night. There are collation centers at the local government level that don't have electricity because they say go to school premises. And you go to these school premises, there are no light. So at times this thing, snowball into or spiral into the following day, and it leads to delay in collation of results. So as much as I cherish the facility and the therapy of IREF to solve some of these problems, but that infrastructural gap with respect to electricity and other technology is a huge issue that we must continue to look into. So it's not about reform. Every time you come talk about reform, you want to tinker with the electorate. We change laws too much. Practice a particular law for 10, 15 years. Let's see how much impact this particular law will have, on the well-being of that process you are trying to address. So that in the final analysis, you'll be able to say, okay, this law we have put into practice for 15 years. What we have got is 40% of what we want to address. Let us tinker with it. There are laws that last for 100 years before they tinker with them. There are only in Nigeria that you see that laws are made for even the human beings. They are made for persons, not for the system. They say because this person is this, they will make law and they will tinker with it. I think the real problem, the real challenge is for us to continue to drum it louder. Parties must play their role as agents of change, number one. Number two, there has to be a deliberate effort to carry out attitudinal reorientation of minds. You see, people keep talking. I have been on the field. I have seen things. I've seen scenarios. A lot of people don't even want to hear you preach all this attitudinal reorientation. All they want to just give them money at the local level. They want to go and cook pot of soup for their husband. They want to go and cook for their children and all of that. Whatever you do with the election, they don't care because they say you don't come back again to show accountability and what have you. So there has to be a greater need by political parties to get more people, involved in the politics of governance. Because the more, the merrier. When you bring people to participate, then they will have a greater responsibility of interrogating those who are there, delivering governance or failing to deliver governance. So there's a whole lot of responsibility.
I do know that one of the reforms, because we've had some conversation after the elections, and one of the reforms that they're looking at, the national, even the, the chairman of the INEC committee in the National Assembly, but more specifically in the House of Representatives, also spoke to the fact that this agitation that we should have a situation where those who have been elected, finish all court matters around their election before they are sworn in is something that we need to address. Because they think that when they are sworn in, they do have
due advantage.
Exactly. So you agree with that?
Yeah, it's a good requirement. It's a good requirement that I would want to see. But again, you have to look at the state of the courts. As we speak now, if you have interaction with judges, they will tell you that some of them are allocated 100 cases within a space of 3 months. So 200 cases at some point and all that. They will tell you judges are not enough. Even the courts are not enough. Because Nigerians, they will always want to go to court. I remember when we were in government in Edo, Comrade Adams Oshomole tried to remove what you call the customary court of appeal. I said, this customary court and all of that, they don't have responsibility, but you pay the payment that's accruing to them is almost at par with other judges. A judge will sit to handle about 150 cases, 200 cases. Then a customary court of appeal we just handle about 10, 15 cases. And they go home with the same emolument and what have you. So you try to, eliminate that one and all that. It came up with all kinds of problems at the end of the day. People were complaining, this, that, and all of that. But what I'm saying is, it is good for you to finish your cases before you are zoning. Good idea. But we must begin to think of how to commence that process by looking into the judiciary. How much of funding have you given them? How much of reform have you even carried out in the courts, to ensure that there are enough judges that will handle cases? Because litigations, electoral litigations are so huge. The last time, I think about 1,300 or something, I can't remember the figure. There was a time, the least time was about 780 thereabout. And so they keep going higher and higher and higher. Why? Because people just feel that people enter into politics impecunious. They don't have resources, they don't have money. But when they are getting out of it, they are so rich. So the craze for getting into politics is getting bigger and bigger, higher and higher. Everybody wants to be involved and all of that. And there's no politician you talk to when it's contested election. If they are 20, they will tell you all of them. All of them will tell you that I will win. I have all the structure. I have everything in place. Nobody wants to.
You were nearly one of those politicians.
Yeah. But
just a few weeks ago.
But I was saying, yes. But when I was told that this is the arrangement, I pulled back.
It's because of the zoning formula.
It wasn't zoning. They said from my part of the state that we already have a minister, so we should give other 2 zones the opportunity to contest. And I felt that was fair enough, so I pulled back. A lot of people wouldn't want to do that. I went around the states, I campaigned in local government, I spent money and all of that, but I won't kill myself because in the final end, I know that if it's not me, it must be someone else. One person will emerge, no matter how fairly or badly conducted the process may be, one person will emerge. And so in politics, I keep telling people, it's not a game for morals. Don't come and preach morality in politics and all of that. Don't come and preach it. If you want to make heaven, go and be a chief imam or a pastor and begin to wait for salvation. Because in the final analysis, the kind of lies they tell in politics, the kind of betrayals, the kind of backstabbing.
This picture that you paint of politicians, yes. People who are supposed to be in charge of the Nigerian people. And every time I hear...
It's all over the world, though. This thing I'm telling you.
Understand my point, yes, really. This picture that we paint of who politicians are, you cannot control them. Oh, they will do whatever. You have to let politicians be. If you want to go to heaven, that's not what you're supposed to do. We forget that these people are the same people who are going to be in government. And they're going to be the people governing over people who are moralistic in nature. What does that say to the kind of governance that you people with your point of view, because that is your point of view. People with your point of view are trying to portray politicians as people that cannot be moralistic. Is that what you're saying?
You see, I'm telling you, I like to be practical. I don't know how you see, a lot of Nigerians behave like Chichidodo bird. The Chichidodo bird is a very clean bird, very neat bird, beautiful. It feeds on maggot, but doesn't like the smell of feces. What produces maggot? It's the excreta that produces maggot, but that's what it feeds on. But it's a very neat, clean bird. Oh, don't touch me. You see, Nigerians must come to the realization that politics, the reward for politics is here on earth. You don't join politics because you want to make heaven. That is one. Secondly, it is all about service delivery. It's all about making the society a better place. So you need to build a strong citizen participation that will interrogate those immorals, so to speak. Interrogate and put them on their toes so that you can get that service delivery that is required of them at the point of delivering their promises. So that, you see, you don't say, oh, because I'm a moralist. A lot of people don't get into politics and say it's a dirty game. Isn't it? But it's a dirty game. You allow the dirty people to participate in it. Then you turn around to criticize the dirty people and say that they are not doing. What do you expect from them? So if the right guys get into it, you may begin to, change the orientation, the situation around political engagement, processes, and all of that for a better outcome. Because, Megwa, if you see what what exists, what goes on in the process of politicking. You see, they give you credit when you have capacity to manipulate a process. They give you credit when you can display gerrymandering. They give you credit when you know how to backstab. You do this or betray. That they say it's all politics. It's all politics. What is that? Oftentimes I don't even have stomach to, to keep all of this. I say, what? This one? That's why a lot of people see me as controversial. They say, no. It's like this. And those of us who are like this, we don't get to the nexus of the issues.
Well, I understand that my colleague Ayo has more questions for you. Over now to you.
Well, thank you, Mokwe. Mr. Afegbua, let me just go straight to one of the issues that my colleagues have raised with you and connect it with something that INEC said in its report. As a matter of fact, I would say it's one of INEC's attempts to be vulnerable. Talking about internal communication, INEC says they have an internal communication policy which they revised from 2013 up until the last election. Connecting it to the issue that was raised about the upload on IREV, that report says on page 160, around 4 p.m., the Commission began to receive reports that attempts to upload presidential election results were failing. Following that, the Commission engaged its field officials for details on and on. But then down the page, it says attempts to upload the results were generating internal service errors. Earlier in that report, INEC complained of internal communication, which led to low synergy among the departments with observable territoriality. So sometimes, could one adduce that some of these issues that's questioned the entire outcome, as far as many people are concerned, is actually from within INEC itself and consequently needs some purging?
Well, thank you for your question. It's a function of two. It could be from within INEC. It could also be from the circle of politicians and those who are engaging in the process. When politicians are seeking for power, there's always a lot of desperation. And I've told you that I've had cases, I've had people in the build-up to that elections who were trained for the purpose of hacking into INEC facility. And so if in the process of doing that, they hack into it to cause technical glitches and what have you, you may say INEC is to be blamed. But at the end of the day, you discover that they are the ones, that the politicians are the ones who had caused that. That is one. The second thing is that there is no technology that is foolproof when it comes to issue of election or issue of IREF and what have you. Any technology at all can break down at any point in time. So it is not a thing to say, oh, we must kill INEC because they were unable to post results on IREF. At the same time, there are alternatives, which is the fact that agents can collect results at the polling unit level. If you have agents, you have. The APC, for example, has agents in the entire polling units. And so they fall back on the report from the agents at the polling unit level to know the entire behavioral pattern of voters at the local level, at the polling unit level, in summation to what the final outcome of the result is. But when you don't have agents in the entire time, you were waiting on IREF, when you are disappointed by a technical glitch, you are likely going to face this kind of scenario that we face, such that everybody was attacking INEC.
Well, everyone will take their own from the pie, Mr. Afegbua, but I understand that one of your colleagues in the field has since joined us. We expected him earlier. Tanko is Chief Spokesman, Obidati Campaign 2023. He's also right there in our Abuja studio. Well, Mr. Tanko, I expect that you would want to respond to one or two things that you've heard Mr. Afegbua said since you were able to join us. How do you respond to his last comment about the fact that political parties did not have enough representation across board, consequently crying foul when IREF failed?
Okay, quickly, let me make this clear. The issue of having agents in the first place is to mitigate the possible outcome of corrupt tendency and wrong presentation or probably manipulation of the system. Ayo, with all due respect, when we employ people to perform a duty, counting and reporting the accurate figure of an election, if you are to be sincere to yourself, if not because you have a manipulative and conspiring tendency, do you even need anybody to checkmate you to do the right thing? Obviously, no. So the issue of agent is another alternative gap to checkmate those who will be corrupted in doing what is rightfully supposed to be done by each and individual. So therefore, that was the reason why the issue of the IRF was actually used as a kind of a checkmating gap between even the agents and the electoral officers themselves. Remember, this is not the first time we are having the issue of using electronic way of reporting elections. At those elections, about 4 years ago, we were having the use of Vivas. I was part of those particular electoral observers that went to Edo and Ondo. And for the first time, the majority of us commended INEC. If they do the right thing, we will commend them. Check my video, you will see it. We commended them because at that time, there were at least almost 90% or 100% reportage of the actual results. There was no mistake because the result that you counted at the polling unit replicate what everybody was seeing on the Vivas machine as at that time. So therefore, that means that we could do it. But then, the question here is this. We are talking about a presidential election that took place on 25th. 3 elections took place on the same time. Federal House of Reps, Senate, and then the presidential election. All reports were being done simultaneously. There's no way you can convince me or any person, sane person, in fact, even an insane person, that those results can be published for the 2 elections and one had a glitch. There was a deliberate attempt. And the truth is this. Somebody ought to have been held responsible. This particular report is just medicine after death.
Have you seen it?
I just read it on the surface level, and particularly on the issue of IRF. Because if INEC had dealt with the issue at that time, in fact, to tell you the truth, some of the most highly qualified individuals who have been following the trend of events were the one that even called me 1 hour after. He said, look, I don't understand what's going on. I am seeing the report, the IRF is representing the report for Federal House of Reps Senate, but the presidential report, the result is not coming. What is going on?
Well, let's just read quickly, because they also mentioned that they said around 4 p.m. the commission began to receive reports that attempts to upload presidential election results sheets were failing. The commission immediately engaged with its field officials for details in order to understand and trace the origin, source, scale, and magnitude of the problem across the result management ecosystem to devise appropriate solutions. Attempts to upload the results were generating internal server errors, which refer to a significant impairment that usually originate from within an application due to problems relating to configuration, permissions, or failure to create or access application resources correctly. So that's what INEC is saying in their own excuse or in their own explanation of what happened with the problems uploading presidential election results. That certainly doesn't satisfy you, does it?
Oh, not at all. Because if you were to create internal problems, why didn't it affect the Federal House of Reps and Senate? It's simple. Let it affect the whole 3 elections.
Then you would have accepted it.
Of course, it would have been clear that something is wrong and technically fine.
So is this for you? Now, I'm wondering whether this is a management problem in the sense that when INEC noticed the problems, do you think it's how they handled it? Because, I mean, problems could emanate from anywhere, but in the manner in which they handled it, when they didn't immediately come out to say, look, we've noticed this challenge and this is what we're doing about it, do you think that that's what affected people's perception of what transpired?
At our situation monitoring office, immediately I received that call. I don't want to mention name, from a very highly respected person within the system. It was like 30 minutes after. that the report was, and he called me. So, and I called the appropriate quarters immediately. Immediately, I called them. That's about 30 minutes, 1 hour in the situation room. So I called and I explained, this is going on and this is going to affect your credibility and the credibility of the institution entirely. Look, this election can be made simply clear. Whoever wins, we are ready to give to congratulate whoever wins the election. But just make sure that it goes the way the IRF is going. Every Nigerian will be satisfied. Yes, we are working on it. No statement came. 2 hours, 3 hours, no any statement came as regard to what is happening with the presidential election. No statement. So if a statement had been issued at that point... Instantly, they could have explained to Nigerians, it could have sent a different message. Okay, so we're almost out of time now. I want you to quickly, we're looking at also at reforms. Yes. From your own perspective, what are some of the key reforms that the National Assembly should be looking at? Very good. Number one, remember there was an electoral reform that started even before the amendment of 2010. I think all of these are protests and demonstrations. We should gear our strength towards this now. Insist that there's going to be a constitutional amendment on this electoral act. It must be done. To reflect what? To reflect the changes and institutionalize and make it a clear cut, not giving any kind of lacuna, the way that there's an option that if you don't have this, we can do this. Okay? Let's be clear on what the process are. Because INEC said one thing and they did another thing entirely. 2, the issue of appointment of INEC chairman and the processes of having INEC leadership must be visited. If we don't do it, we will have worse than glitches in the next election. INEC must be unbundled. We must have enforcement agency, just like Justice Mohammed Uwais report presented. We must have the delineation. We must have the electoral what they call the Electoral Commission, who deals directly with only elections. And if we can't do that, it will help us. And we don't need to create any kind of room for it. The National Assembly should know that if they do this, they are doing it for themselves, not for Nigerians only, because tomorrow they will come back and be a victim of wrong laws. Well, Mr. Afegbua already did say that we shouldn't be looking at reforms. We should operate the law for a while. 1 or 2 reforms, I think you're welcome. Very well. So you see the point I want... Just quickly, in 30 seconds. Yes, if I follow his logic, I will say that there was no problem in the 2023 elections in terms of IRF and no IRF. You know why? He said he accepted the outcome of the House of Rep, Senate, and the other elections, the result they posted. But only at the presidency and all that. So a party that didn't score well in the other elections, how did the party expect IRF to now produce results for you that will make it victorious? That is just my own big question. We're looking at reforms. We're looking at reforms, Mr. Yes, I know. This is not. And gentlemen, we're totally out of time. We're totally out of time. I wish I was here earlier. I really wish so, Mr. Tanko. So sorry about that, Mr. Tanko. No, you should be sorry. He was telling you to tell you how serious I was. I lost a tire. You can go. It doesn't matter. It does matter. Just a moment, gentlemen. We're totally out of time. We have to thank we have to thank them both for coming on Sunrise this morning. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We appreciate the difficulty that you had here. Mr. Yunusa Tanko is the chief spokesperson, Obidati Campaign 2023, and also Mr. Kasim Afegbua was a former member, Media Strategy Committee of the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress. Gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.